Hello, good evening, and welcome to a new episode of Arguably the Reading Quest. I am Nishant. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about one of the greatest plays written in the second half of the last century, 20th century. So, let me introduce you to Samuel's Beckett Waiting for Godot. So, Waiting for Godot, this book that I'm displaying is the complete dramatic works of Beckett. The complete dramatic works of Beckett were written between the years 1955 to 1984. In these close to 30 years, 29 years period. And Waiting for Godot, the text is taken from this book. I have read it from this book. This is published at Faber and Faber. So, before we start, let me tell you, I hope all of you are aware that Samuel Beckett was also awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1969. And the Nobel Prize Committee cites for his writing which, in new forms for the novel and drama, in which the destitution of modern man acquires its elevation. So no wonder this play talks about, the destitution of modern man raised to apotheosis. And Beckett was Joyce's protege. That is how at least Beckett feels. Whether Joyce felt whether he was a mentor to Beckett or not, but Beckett definitely felt that he was Joyce's protege. I'll, tell you the story a little later. But before we start, you see what a realistic panegyric written by another great Western intellectual of the last century, that is Michel Foucault. And Michel Foucault says it in the year 1983. A panegyric on... and a realistic panegyric, as I call it, on the Waiting for Godot, is that Michel Foucault says, I belong to that generation who as students had before their eyes and were limited by a horizon consisting of Marxism, phenomenology and existentialism. For me, the break was first Beckett's Waiting for Godot, a breathtaking performance. So you can understand when Michel Foucault says such thing about Waiting for Godot, it is something worth considering. This should be our, initial point of consideration. So the story revolves around two seemingly homeless men simply waiting for someone called Godot, who never arrives. Vladimir and Strajan wait near a tree, inhabiting a drama spun of their own consciousness. The result is a comical wordplay of poetry, dreamscapes, and nonsense, which has been interpreted as mankind's inexhaustible search for meaning. Beckett's language was a kind of language that can be clearly called as expressionist minimalism, that captures the existential post-World War II Europe. His plays remain one of the most magical and the beautiful allegories of our time. So, what do we mean by expressionist minimalism is also described in the back cover of this book, written by Hugh Kenner. So, Hugh Kenner says that he believes in the cadence, the rhythmic rise and fall of sound, the comma, the bite of word on reality, whatever else he believes. And his devotion to them, he makes clear it is a sufficient focus for the reader's attention. In the modern history of literature, he is a unique moral figure, not a dreamer of rose garden, but a cultivator of what will grow in the wasteland. Who can make us see the titillating design that thorns and yucca share with whatever will grow anywhere, says Hugh Kenner. So, and there's a very short play of just 60 pages, 60 to 70 pages, depending on the font size. So you can read it in just 2 hours time. And then you can, read in between the line, but a lot of allegories and allusions and, a lot of philosophical nuances are there. To start with, I'll help you understand the play. But before that, some quotes, as has always been the custom of this channel. So, Samuel Beckett says in Waiting for Godot, the tears of the world are a constant quantity. For each one who begins to weep, somewhere else another stops. The same is true of the law. Every word is like an unnecessary stain on silence and nothingness, says Samuel Beckett. We wait, we are bored. He throws up his hand. No, don't protest. We are bored to death. There is no denying it. Good. A diversion comes along, and what do? We let it go to waste. Come, let's get to work. He advances toward the heap, stops in his stride. In an instant, all will vanish and we will be alone more in the midst of nothingness, says Samuel Beckett. He imagines that when I see him indefatigable, I'll regret my decision. Such is his miserable scheme, as though I were short of slaves. Let's hang ourselves immediately. So, this is a story where two people wait for a person called Godot. And Waiting for Godot is a play where nothing happens twice. It's one of the most famous descriptions of Samuel Beckett's play. But this has been misattributed to Martin Esslin, who popularized the idea of the theater of absurd. But he did not originate this particular line. So this particular phrase was coined by Irish theater critic Vivian Mercier in the year 1956. And was, of course, later Esslin also meant it. So this sentence is a witty, a paradoxical summary of the play, radical structure and dramatic emptiness. Nothing happens, comma, twice. Now you see the syntactical placement of comma. You can see both these two lines at my computer screen. Nothing happens twice, nothing happens, comma, twice. As you know, Beckett was very much particular about comma, short, pithy phrases, minimalistic expressions. So nothing happens, comma, twice is very different from nothing happens twice. Nothing happens twice will be totally out of context of this play, where no two things happen twice. But this play where nothing happens twice means nothingness repeats again and again and again. The play is directed in two acts, and in both these acts, the repetition, the absurdity, the nothingness, the cyclical rotation of time, or shall I say, the implausibility of time is very much evident. So nothingness happens twice in both the two acts. And there is no traditional plot progression. Vladimir and Strejan simply wait for Godot, who never arrives. No major event occurs. No birth, no death, marriage, battle, revelation or resolution. The character talk, play small games, contemplate suicide, eat a carrot, exchange hats, meet two other boys, Pozzo and Lucky. And the play has, two almost identical acts. So Samuel Beckett play is a play where nothing happens twice. That captures the central absurdity and the philosophical punch. So human life, or at least the modern existence, is revealed in an endless circular waiting for meaning, salvation or purpose. Purpose here is allegorized with the help of Godot, that never arrived. The repetition of nothing in two acts mirrors the repetitive, ritualistic, futile nature of that waiting. And Beckett forces the audience to experience the same boredom, frustration, and existential emptiness that the character feels. So this clearly a break away from Aristotelian plot, a theater that completely abandons the Aristotelian theater. Nothing happens twice is not an insult, it's not a complaint, it's rather a high praise for Beckett's genius in creating a play whose very form enacts the meaninglessness and endless postponement that it wants to communicate. One interesting parallel that is often drawn between Samuel Beckett Waiting for Godot and Albert Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus is that in Sisyphus, at least the certainty of his getting a boulder there was almost certain. But in Samuel Beckett's play Waiting for Godot, you do not know whether that tree will be there the very next day or the very next moment or not. So that certainty of finding a boulder even was lost. So it talks of one step ahead of what Albert Camus says in the myth of Sisyphus. The tree is there, bare of all the leaves, and a few leaves hang loosely, which shows the absurdity of human life. That life is those leaves reflect the caducity of human life, the ephemerality of human life. The very moment the leaves are there, the very next moment the leaves will not be there. So there is no certainty. You do not see, you do not sense a sense of time or sense of passing season. Everything is very much uncertain. So with the help of uncertainty, Samuel Beckett Waiting for Godot talks about a deeper reflection on human life without offering any answer. It forces us to reflect. It forces us to reflect on the absurdity of life, on the caducity of life, on the fleeting and the vanishing nature of life, without offering any answers. So there is no answer, only deeper and deeper reflection, as the Nobel Prize Committee cites, where the destitution of the modern man acquires a kind of elevated status. So definitely recommending you this book. For the very first time, I have done a video on drama, because I have read very few dramas in my life. I have always been a man of novel and poems, and very, very less of drama. But this is one drama that I have read, and I come back often again and again in my life. And this can be read in just one sitting. So you please read it and then watch the video, or maybe you can watch my video completely and then go back to read this novel. The purpose of this channel was not to tell you the plot or the detailed structure and the detailed dialogues of all such things. That's beyond the purview of this channel. But to give you some hint that will keep you going through this channel. If you've still not liked, shared and subscribed my YouTube channel, Arguably The Reading Quest, please do that. If you're a new subscriber, please do say a hello to me. I'll try replying each one of you personally. Thank you all of you. Happy reading, guys.